How did these themes play out over time? Was this as you might have expected, or as you experienced the themes yourself as a consumer, but also as I think a political junkie yourself, Stuart?
Yeah, I mean, I think the kind of one of the kind of interesting things you're seeing here is that obviously there is that kind of leadership PM succession, Westminster return, Labour crisis, all of those types of issues are the ones that are kind of being covered, which is pretty much what you'd expect. I think when we begin to drill down into what some of the policy or topic issues were, that becomes kind of quite interesting. And I think it's probably a bit clearer to see on one of the following slides as to what the volumes of those. Yeah, here we go.
Here we go. Yeah. So rather than showing the themes over time on the previous chart, this shows what proportion of that of that cohort of content that we looked at in a deeper fashion, how often those themes appeared. So of course, yeah, that top theme, leadership, PM succession, appearing in 77% of it's about 5,000 clips that we actually really dug down deep in to get some of these qualitative metrics out of. So yeah, we see 3,665 clips, or 77.3, focusing on that leadership PM succession story. And here they are, all of those other themes listed in descending order. And I suppose that's why we came up with the headline. Was it about party? Was it about politics? Was it about policy? And to your point, I guess one can't expect to see policy to be lighting up the airways at the early stages. It's going to be about the power play. It's going to be about the manoeuvrings. It's going to be about matters that appeal to the full audience. Of course, we have got BBC Radio Manchester reflected in this deep dive sample, and that's where perhaps we're more likely to have seen some of that policy discussion, some of those sort of local specific stories. Just wondered if you've got any more reflections, Stuart, here on perhaps some of the lesser picked up themes, perhaps more so than the more prolific themes that we saw reflected in the conversation.
Yeah, and I think this slide's kind of one of the most interesting, because in terms of kind of campaign planning, and I think one of the kind of the things that I always want people to do when they're looking at this type of media intelligence is not to kind of look at, okay, how well did we do, or what happened, which I think is people do too often. But actually, what can we learn from this? How can this influence what we're going to do in the future and help us to plan better? And I think kind of there's kind of several issues there. Is, well, first up, if you actually look at which policy issues made that kind of the top tier, well, you had devolution, kind of mayor record transport, but you kind of expect that one too because it was Andy. I think the next, if you kind of discount that, the highest one is economy. So it goes back to kind of that old adage of it's the economy, stupid, and just how important that is. And then we kind of where it gets interesting next is looking at those next ones: crime, ASB, youth zones, policing coming out. And it'd be interesting to see how the things that broadcast media were covering are reflected in the first policy announcements that I made this week, and to see, whether there's some synergy between them, or where or not. Because the one that's kind of surprised me on there was that cost of living and social care were comparatively low. So something that I think is going to be really near the top of what's going to be spoken about this week in terms of broadcast media coverage so far has been quite low.